Here we go again. Another guy that hates the place he's living in and only complains when he can easily just board a plane and go back home. Folks, welcome to the channel. Survival and preparedness is what we do here, but a lot of it is about understanding human behavior, being coherent with your ideas, those that you express, those that you keep for yourself, and understanding also the small little details of people. And it just blows my mind how that is lost in so many out there. Look, I started with the idea of doing this about tips, but then I realized it goes way beyond that. Now, in typical fashion, I'll go through all of it. And also remember, if you want to learn more about survival preparedness, that's what I do here on the channel. That's what I write about. You have street survival skills and surviving the economic collapse, my books, which are available in the links in Amazon, following those links there below. So a while back, I saw this from, what was it, on Twitter. So this is from someone in US. These European masters say, sorry, we don't tip, laughed and walked out. Close the border to close the borders to Europe now. So these people paid $288 on a meal and they walked out saying, claim it. I mean, this is Twitter, so you don't know if this was entirely made up, but let's say this actually happened. It would be extremely rare because this would be extremely rude no matter where you are. But yeah, in theory, this is what happened. Now, this I do believe. 20% suggested tip, 22%, 25%. I think they lost the concept of what a tip is. A tip is the small part of the spear, of the knife, or whatever. It's a small part. It's not 25% of anything. 25% of nothing is a tip of physicalized nothingness. But hey, this is what this person was complaining about, right? And here's where the main topic, I guess. Is it true that Europeans don't tip? No, it is not. It does not make any sense. If you think about it for a couple seconds, why would it be that way? Now, it is true, though, that no, you're not forced to pay 20% more over your meal, over your dinner, whatever. I mean, you spend $100, $250, doesn't matter. But the idea that you're forced to pay 20, 25% over what you already paid because these people working in this restaurant are not paying enough to survive, that is ridiculous. That's not on you. That's probably on the owner of this restaurant that should be a little bit more generous with his wages and not just count on, those damn Europeans or whatever having to pay 25% over the meal. This brought me through one of these typical rabbit holes where I ended up finding this other guy, Spain Reveal, apparently a Brit living in Spain, and this is what he has to say about tipping in Europe and specifically about tipping in Spain.
Of Spain, boquerones y vinagre. A ver. It's like a vinegary slap across the face. Okay, so you...
This would be typical. This would be the owner of a restaurant, a joint, and they make okay money, lives decently enough, nice, whatever. But it's probably not going to be the same level as you see with a successful restaurant in the United States where the owner of the restaurant has a huge chunk of that for himself, and then we just count on the guy on the waiters making money through tips. That is not typically how it goes, and it goes into another topic that I want to cover in another video, which is the Gini Index, which is very interesting, but yeah, for another video. But typically, restaurant owner is not going to be, it's not going to be a multimillionaire. I mean, there are, but typically it would be someone that makes good money, of course, more than his employees, but the chef is going to be paid well, and the waiter or waitress or whoever it is probably going to be making more and not just counting on tips to survive, right?
Okay, so you've finished your meal, you've fought for the bill, and you're wondering if you have to leave a tip. And if so, how much? Well, let's get one thing clear. Waiters in Spain are paid, or should be paid, a living wage. So there's no obligation ever to tip. It's up to the diner, at the diner's discretion, if the food and the service was good.
That is actually not true. That is incorrect. I mean, you can. There's a difference between you can be an asshole, you can be rude, you can be a complete scumbag, you can be extremely cheap, but it's really in poor form not to leave. I mean, again, it is And this is where I feel that everything gets mixed up in terms of human interaction, missing those little details. No, I mean, there's a middle point between having to pay, being forced to pay 25% of a tip, which is just, it is insanity itself, and then just paying nothing. You don't have an obligation. But at the same time, there's no legal obligation, as far as I know, let me know in the comments if I'm wrong, there's no legal obligation in the United States to leave a tip either. And yet you wouldn't say that, yeah, there's no obligation to, it would be assumed that, yeah, it is a culture where tipping is kind of the cultural accepted norm, right? Now, it is insane what happens in the United States with 20-25%. It used to be a few years ago that 10% was perfectly reasonable. Now, in Spain and in Europe in general, and basically in the rest of the world, it is kind of common sense that a bit of a tip is nice, and you want to be nice for people that are serving you food, right? You're not having to compensate for the shitty wages that they have, but a tip is still a tip. The word in itself is a clue. A tip. What is it? Let's say you have a coffee, right? And you go to a place that's not, killing you, and you pay what, $1.50, $2.50, whatever, and you want to round it up. Oh, but it's gonna be what? It doesn't matter. What is it? 50 cents. Okay, $3, $2.50. You don't even bother with much of the math, right? At least personally, that's the way I would see it. And the service you got was basically just a guy in a hurry leaving something on you and gone, right? That's it. The service that I got, no, it's just a tip in the word itself. Now, notice how this guy, I think he's British, living in Spain, he has a channel. It's called Spain Revealed, and look at the lack of comprehension of what the guy is saying.
There's no obligation ever to tip. It's up to the diner, at the diner's discretion, if the food and the service was good.
¿Los españoles dejan propina? No me parece tan seguro.
So the guy asks, do Spanish people leave a tip? And the guy says, yeah, they usually do. And he misses that. He's looking at him as if, are you fucking stupid? I mean, if the guy is even maybe a regular, right? What are you talking about? Don't you leave yourself a tip? Yeah, he probably does. I at least would assume that. Why is he even asking that? It is a stupid question to ask. It would be extremely rude to go to a restaurant or even a bar where you want to have somewhat of a, especially if you're a regular, leaving something is a decent thing to do. Now, is it, oh yes, you have to leave 20-25% all the time? No, but leaving a few bucks, yeah. And if you want to go by a number because you're a numbers type, yeah, 10% is usually okay. It's usually a 10%, especially when you paid like a couple $100 or $300 meal. Yeah, when you had a bunch of people, 10% is very decent. If you want to leave more, hell, leave $1,000 or euros or whatever it is. But 10% is usually accepted. 5% when you spend a lot of money, and that's leaving the guy, I don't know, whatever, $20 in his pocket, he's probably going to be happy with that too, right? It's not expected for you to pay 20%. It's not even expected to pay 10%. It's not expected to pay anything at all. But it would be very fucking rude, and that's not the way you want to go about things in life, I guess.
No, sí.
And he insists, yes, because this guy, man, it just blows my mind. Again, this, and there's another video which makes a lot of sense, which we will get to in a minute. But this social interaction of asking the guy, do Spanish people leave tip? Yeah, they usually do. You're not sure, are you? Yes, I am. Yes, they do.
Ever to tip. It's up to the diner, at the diner's discretion, if the food and the service was good.
¿Los españoles dejan propina? No me parece tan seguro.
No, sí.
¿Sí? ¿Siempre o...?
Siempre no.
¿No?
So he wants to make this point that no, and yes, always, and the guy thinks, well, there may be some rude asshole that came by and didn't leave a penny of a tip. So yeah, it is not an always, but it is the norm. It is the socially accepted norm. But this is the bias. And this is the kind of, you know what, go home. Go to your own country if you don't want to accept things as they are. If you want to impose your own bullshit on others, Go back to your home country, wherever that may be. Just like the guy from the previous video, this guy wants to make a point about...
I'm a 44-year-old man. I know I don't look it, and thank you for saying so. I have spent 12 years living in Spain, which is a quarter of my...
You spent a quarter of your life living in Spain, and still you want to pull your bullshit on the country that welcomed you. That is just sad. Seriously, don't you realize what you're doing with a guy in the bar? Like, not always. Yeah. People, Spanish people leave tip. No, they don't. No. Yeah, yes, they do. How many times do you need people to repeat that you're wrong with your assumptions? But then you see a video like this where the things that bother him about Spain, right? Canned asparagus. I can't vote. Of course you cannot. You're not a fucking citizen of the country. Why the hell would you vote? And besides, do you know of any non-citizen that votes in your own country, in UK? No, right? So what is this that you hate about Spain when it's not about Spain? It's about every country in the planet that you're not a citizen, you can't vote there.
Fair enough, you say, James. Just go ahead and get your Spanish citizenship. What's the big deal? Well, the thing is, to take Spanish citizenship, by Spanish law, I would have to renounce my New Zealand citizenship. And
all right, no, it's not even it's not even UK. It's in New Zealand. So who the fuck votes in New Zealand without citizenship? Let me know in the comments.
I don't really want to do that to my mother. Look, in a practical sense, I could have both citizenships and nobody would really care, but should I have to be able to?
Yeah, because the world does not revolve around you, you selfish, egocentric lunatic. And it goes on. He complains about tourification. Yes, I think it is Spain and France, the countries that have the most tourists in the world. That's the way it is. I mean, that's probably why you're living there. Spam phone calls. Dude, get yourself a decent cell phone. It blocks it on its own. And let me tell you, spam phone calls are a thing everywhere these days. Oh, and this is rich. Racism. The guy that cannot accept that a culture is not what he made it up to be in his own head, he complains about racism in one of the most welcoming countries in the planet.
Where casual racism is relatively common, and perhaps more frustrating is the inability or unwillingness of a lot of people to see racism for what it is when it's right in front of them. Let me give you a couple of examples. One, this famous...
So every Spanish is wrong, and they need to adjust to his wokish bullshit idea of inclusion from New Zealand. How racist are you? How blind are you to your own racism that you expect to impose your way of viewing things on a whole different country at literally the other end of the world? It's not like that. People don't get offended by the same things. People don't consider the same things as you obviously do racist, which, by the way, these days, what the hell is not racist anymore? Well, again, let me know in the comments.
Candy here, this much-loved candy.
There's a candy, Conitos, right? A round chocolate thing, and they make it oh, there's a black guy. Yeah, it is a black guy because it's black candy or brown candy. Yet, you know who gets offended by this? No black guy ever in Spain gets offended by fucking Conitos. But this guy is offended for you. You don't even have to be offended yourself as a black person. If you see this and say, that doesn't really offend me. I actually like chocolate on peanuts, so it's actually quite good, so I'm okay with that. No, don't worry. This guy will be offended for you, and he will continue to complain about the place for you. And then stuff like the blackface and this, it is right. It is really. I'm not Dutch.
So there's something strange that happens sometimes when I get my hair cut in Spain. I'll be chatting to the hairdresser, and at some point they will say invariably, "Oh, where are you from?" And I will say,
the most racist question ever. Notice how these people are all the same. The guy in Argentina that was offended by, "Where are you from?" Yes, again, you egocentric lunatic. When you're not local and people notice, the most common question in the universe is, "So where are you from?" That is the friendliest type of conversation you can have with a complete stranger that is obviously not from there.
New Zealand, Nueva Zelanda. And at that point, they'll pause for a moment and they'll say, "Ooh, it must be very cold up there."
So they have no clue where you're from. Okay. Nepotism, work relationships, bureaucracy, the long Spanish good. He's this is disgusting. He's bothered by people being friendly a little bit too much for his own comfort. Yeah, the long Spanish goodbye. When people say, "Hey, bye."
Comic Sans. Okay, last one. And if you don't...
Okay, we already gave him way too much more time than he deserves. He has a pet. I wouldn't be surprised if he's even married to someone from Spain. That would be typical, right? Dude, you're bothered by the culture, by the way people greet each other and say goodbye, by how friendly people are. Go back to your fucking country. Go back there, right? You're not a damn tree. You haven't been planted and rooted in some place. Go back to the same airline you came from and go back to damn New Zealand. It's a beautiful place, I've heard. Never been there. I'm not planning to go there anytime soon. There was a time in which I considered it a potentially decent place to be if you have to escape the planet. Not anymore. It's gone to extreme socialism and it's like Canada, but on the other end. So if you don't like it, leave. And as you see, he's being ratioed quite a bit. But you know why he's not being ratioed more? Because of how polite Spanish people are. In the same video, in the same thing happening with a video from the guy in Argentina where he was being ratioed a little bit, but really not nearly as much as he should. Because people are opposite to what he says about races and no, people are way too nice to these assholes. Go back home, you horrible person. See you next video. Take care.